Hey guys, welcome back to the Sun Porch, where we can sit down, get comfortable, and talk about the things that matter the most. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different and probably get a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about racism. Now, I know that word alone can bring out a lot of different feelings: anger, confusion, discomfort. But the truth is, racism is something that has affected all of us one way or another, whether we see it directly or we don't. Now, if you want a world that is more like this sun porch, warm, welcoming, and safe, you have to be willing to have conversations like these. Now, I'm not here to point fingers or to give lectures, but I am here to open up a space for honesty. Because racism just doesn't live in our history books. It lives in our schools, it lives in our workplaces, it lives in our communities, and even in those small comments that we just sometimes let slide. Now, I want us to lean in. I'm going to share my story, some thoughts, maybe some tips, and maybe some hope. And maybe together we can be part of making a change. So, guys, just grab your drink, settle in, and let's just get to it. Have a real conversation right here, right now. So, I'm going to start by just saying that me sharing my own story is a little bit uncomfortable for me. Racism is scary, but it's necessary. Racism is heavy, but we have to be willing to be uncomfortable to talk about it. And pretty much of how I want to start this by just telling you guys that some of you may know and some of you might not know my story of, being a firefighter. I moved in this community a couple years ago, and I just decided that I wanted to volunteer my time. Whether or not it be in a soup kitchen, wherever. So I decided I was going to join a fire station. A fire station pretty much close to my house. So I joined. I didn't know if I wanted to be an active firefighter or if I wanted to do, be in a kitchen or on a fundraising team. I just decided that, hey, you know what, I'm going to be an active firefighter. So I, started going through training and, going on calls and doing everything that, what I needed to do to be a firefighter. And I thought I had, found a team, a crew, a crew member team. But I thought wrong. So in my face, but behind my back was a different story. My first incident happened to where we were, just all sitting around, just talking about what we're going to be doing, on Memorial Day and, what we're making, what we're going to eat, things like that. And the first incident happened to where I said I was going to be making, some barbecue chicken, and someone had said, "You're not making chitlins." Now, when I heard it, I was just in complete shock to where I just was, frozen to the comment. I was more or less like surprised, but I was uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable to the part where I just decided to pack my stuff up and just leave. At that time, I, just got out of there as quick as I could. So more or less, I just chose to, call the fire chief after and the assistant fire chief and say, hey, this needs to be addressed because it was inappropriate, and, let's talk about it. The crazy part about it, guys, is the fire chief was sitting right there, so it should have been addressed then, but it didn't. It wasn't. And shame on me for not addressing right there and there, but I didn't know what to do at the time. So I continued to just, go through my training and still go on calls and, go where I needed to go to continue to be a firefighter. And another incident happened shortly after, to where that day, we all get together for our monthly meeting, and I thought the guy felt concerned about what happened. Somebody must have told him what happened, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to apologize for what was said to you, and by the way, what nationality are you?" I leaned back a little bit and I said, "What? What does it matter? Why do you need to know that?" And his comment was, "Are you the word or not?" With a giggle. I felt so hot all over my body, to where I felt steam just coming off from the inside out of me, just coming out. That's how hot I felt. I could feel my body on fire when he said this. I felt so much anger that I had to stop and turn around and leave. Because if I didn't, I knew at that time I was about to get violent. I thought I chose to just get out of there, because if I didn't, I knew I was going to get just as ignorant as he was. And at that time, I thought I did the right thing by going home, calling the fire chief, calling the assistant fire chief, and, telling them what's going on. And, even went to the deputy chief and, a few crew members, and, it was just to the point where, I said, "Hey, I wanted a meeting. We need to discuss this, because I know in our bylaws it doesn't say that you discriminate against, your own crew members," or, I felt so sick to my stomach, because we're at a fire station where we service the public, where we go out and we save lives. And I just felt like something has to be said or done. I even went to outside agents to talk about this, to say, "Hey, what can I do now? I can't go back there. I don't feel safe." This has been so, what's the word I want to say? It's been so heavy and so wrong that I can't even go back there. I'm at a standstill right now, because nothing and no one has been accountable. So what do? Well, using my own story, I should have addressed it right then and there. I should have stood up. I should have, spoke out with the little comments, the jokes, because I know it felt wrong. And I should have said something. "Hey, that's not cool." But don't be so rushed and, to explain or defend. Racism is something that needs to be addressed. We see on the media lots of times that we see, all the hate crimes or the violence, but what do we see about or do about the smaller things that are behind the scenes? Racism can be a lot of different levels. We have generational racism. We have systematic racism. We have a lot. But how do we address it? We address it by having conversations like these. We address it by having conversations that make us feel uncomfortable. You know, I want to thank you guys for leaning in with me today. You know, if this episode made you think, or if you have a story that you want to, you know, share yourself and, you know, or with someone else, or if you even know someone who has a story like this, then, you know, leave it in the comments or share. You know, keep the conversations together. Remember, you know, that it might start off small, but it does add up. So please be kind. Please be open. Be willing to have uncomfortable conversations. I want to thank you guys for joining the Sun Porch. Until next time, have a good day.